Live. Hello, everybody. Hopefully I do not go in and out. Hopefully you guys will let me know if I start sounding like a robot. My headphones have been a bit horrible this week. But today we're very excited to be talking about The Call for our book club by Peadar. What's the last name? Megan is our official pronunciation.
Peadar O'Guilin.
Peadar O'Guilin. Yeah, so we're talking about The Call, which is kind of a creepy horror YA novel, which I'm not going to say anything for you guys, but I loved. So let's go around and talk about ratings. And I have Megan on my left.
Yay. I gave it 5 stars. I read this yesterday. It's very shiny because it's a library book. I read it yesterday, probably in about like 3.5 hours, and I loved it. There were like a couple things, mostly with like writing style, that didn't click with me at first, but I loved all of it. I loved that it was really creepy and gory, and I loved like going to so many different people's calls. So yeah, I just really loved it.
And Rachel.
I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 because, like, anybody that knows me knows I love creepy fairies. It's my favorite thing to read, and this was a creepy fairy book. But I'm going to dock a couple of points because I found the pacing was off, and I really didn't like the ending. And I feel like he could have done a lot more with it, which is something we're going to get into probably a little while. But yeah, 3.5, 3.75, yeah.
And Emma.
I'm going to give it 5 stars. I read it like last fall, I think. So it's been a little while, so I don't remember a ton of details, but I do remember loving it. And like Megan mentioned, I love that we got to see like the different calls, and I loved how like gruesome it was. And I feel like it's very different from a lot of other YA out there. So I thought it was a really cool concept to use like an alternate Ireland. It was pretty cool.
I'm going to definitely give it 5 out of 5. It was one of those books that, it's funny because Rachel, you recommended this to me, and you also recommended the other book to me that I was going to say is one that I have loved as much as this one, which is Creepy Angel Fall. This one and Angel Fall were my like, they're good comps, and they're books that I couldn't put down, and haven't kind of re-experienced that in like a few years actually. Like, so I really, really love The Call. Like literally as soon as I opened it, I was hooked with the bus scene.
Yeah,
so creepy, so amazing. So yeah, 5 out of 5. And I was looking on Goodreads today, and it said there's going to be a sequel, and I freaked out. So.
Well, that was one of the things. Well, first, 2 comments. First of all, is the thing like with The Call and like with Angel Fall, those are horror books in the YA genre that are like pretty true horror, because any kind of horror book for a YA audience is usually a little bit dulled down, maybe not quite the right phrase, but it's like a little bit censored, and
it's more like suspense than gory.
Yeah, exactly. And these were, and this one and Angel Fall were just pure gore. Like it was disgusting. It was creepy. It was so weird, disturbing. But I
obviously needed to get farther into Angel Fall because like I think it was last week you guys were like telling me that it was like horror and creepy, and I was like, wait, what? Because I didn't get far enough into it. Like I was like, oh, it's just an angel book. Like,
no, keep going.
I don't even remember how much of it I read, but like I
did not even
get like the creepy
an angel book.
vibe from it. So like,
keep reading.
I guess that's maybe where it failed me, is that I didn't get that vibe early enough on, so I just gave up on it.
Oh no, you can't give up on it. It's one of my favorite books. But like, see, also for me, like I can't watch horror movies. I'm the worst person that has to do with horror of any kind. I can't even watch like scary movie. Like I'm that bad with horror. And so reading this book, like the entire time, I'm just over here like, but I can't stop. Like, oh god, and then just like, oh my god, but what's happening next? Like it was great, and I loved it.
The funny thing is, like, I was actually talking about this with my husband the other day, because he's like, let's go see Annabelle, and I'm like, F no, because it's not that I don't love horror, because I do love horror that has an actual like good, cleverly told story behind it. And The Call is one of those things. And he's like, oh, why are you excited for like it if you're not excited for Annabelle? Because I'm like, because Annabelle is crap, and it has a great storyline behind it and amazing characters. And like I felt like that about The Call. It was like horrifying, but it was so intricately told, and the plot was so good, and the characters were so compelling that I don't know, I loved it. And normally, yeah, there's certain horror that I'm like, no, thank you. There's no gore in this, like for the sake of gore, or just gore with no substance behind it, right?
Yeah, well,
I think that's what makes it different.
Yeah,
I also think like it's really hard for a book to be like scary to me. Like visually, like I can get really scared with movies, but like a lot of times books, like I just finished reading The Shining and I like wasn't scared the entire time. I was like, eh. It wasn't scary.
Okay.
Reading descriptions of scary things doesn't scare me the way seeing it does, but this book creeped me out because I think they're good job describing it in a way that like
it's unsettling.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's this one line in here, and I don't know what page it's on. I'm like flipping through it like I'm just gonna find it suddenly. It's a line when one of the people comes back from their call, and it's something like the fairies had crafted his face into a delicate rose of blood and skin or something, and like that one line was like I was like, oh god, no. Okay, like,
that was the only one that really got to me. Most of them I was okay, but that one I was like, I need to take a minute.
Like, oh god. But like that is an amazing description because like, that's so terrifying and so disturbing, and it's not even something that you're seeing, it's something that you're reading. Like that was just so good.
Or even I was just flipping through, and like I love, like we were saying, I love that it like shows the different calls. But I was just flipping through and saw the one girl Emma's call, and like it uses this description where it's like like the princess's fingers sunk into her chest like soft cheese, and like it's just like so you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Horrifying.
And then like little things, because also right after that it's like she didn't die for a very long time, and you're just like, oh my gosh.
Horrifying. Yes.
And so I think part of what makes this book effective and creepy is that the author knows when to like pull away. Like,
exactly.
When things are trying to be creepy, they over describe and like tell, where this like he'll give you like a brief horrifying thing and then like let you kind of like imagine and assume the rest of it.
Right, because like nothing is scarier than what you can imagine or what you think might be, you know, behind the. It's like ghost movies. If it's like the floating sheet or whatever, if it comes off and you're like, oh, it's a scary animated whatever, you're like, it's way scarier. Like Signs, where you didn't see the aliens for like 90% of the movie because whatever you can dream up in your head is way scarier than what they can do on screen, right?
Or like weird noises and glimpses out of the corner of your eyes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think the first time that go ahead, it's fine.
I was gonna say along similar lines to what Emma said about he knows when to pull away. I also felt like he knew when to pull forward. Like as a narrator, occasionally he would jump in and be like, but she won't die for 30 more minutes, or half of them will be dead by Christmas. It will be a bloodbath or whatever. And like that every single time just gave me the creeps.
Yeah, so good.
Well, it's because it's like the surety of it. It's not like, oh, like maybe they'll survive or not. It's like they're gonna die, and you're like, okay, like,
but how are they gonna die?
I don't know, they're gonna die. Well, also when you said like zooming in, kind of, I was thinking from the first time that we ever see Fairyland from whoever it is that gets called, and they're talking about how they're running through like a gray landscape, and that was another thing, how Fairyland was very different than what I imagined it to be. It's kind of that gray landscape, but everything in it is made from a failed call. So it's like the heads in like cabbage rows that are like from people, like the little spiders that were people, those weird dogs that had been like mutated people, and I was like, everything's made of human skin and bone. And I'm just like, this is oh god, like this is so gross.
Also, like
terrifying.
Everything is designed to hurt you. Like everything. Like, there's no safe place.
Yeah.
Or when later at once I don't even know. I think it was Anto's call. He goes and he's like in the water, and then those like creatures come up, and they're just like made of bodies.
They're like in the boats and stuff.
Yeah, and they're just like the monsters are just like made of other people, and oh god, it was just so disturbing.
Okay, can we talk about the blurb on the back? Like the back copy is so good.
The 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like 3 minutes. Yeah.
It's basically
mine doesn't have that.
It's in the inside flap.
Yeah,
okay.
it has,
'Cause it's like,
it has my library on it.
it's like a countdown, obviously, of like the 4 minutes or whatever, or 3 minutes, and it's what drew me in the first place. So like, holy crap, because it's that concept of it that is so creepy to me. Like the bus scene where they're like, back up the bus, like, holy crap, back up the bus, because they need to be in the same spot. And I was like, okay, like, because I don't know, it's just, what did they say, that they can appear back, like, and they would be in the like seat or something or whatever, right? If they don't, because they appear in the exact same spot. Even just that alone, I'm like, okay, that fascinates me, like, explore this more. And they do a little bit, because they talk about how no one wants to get in trouble and be, when she's put into that kind of detention.
Oh, yeah, right. What if they get called then? Yeah.
Because it weakens you. What if you get called then? What if you get called over when you're doing this or doing that? And like, when she gets put back and the place is on fire, I'm like, there's so much to this that you could go into. Yeah.
Or like, what if you get called while you're like bathing? So you have no, you know.
Oh
like,
my gosh, there's just
that
so
was
much.
actually one of the things I liked about it, and how realistic they made it, where they were like, everyone had shaved heads, because that gave something fairies to grab onto if you had hair. Or like, everyone was always constantly running to try and thicken the soles of their feet. And like, there's always like distance running, and there's like sword lessons, like javelin lessons, like climbing lessons, so that you can learn to survive. And that was it really took it to the level of believability, because a lot of, I think in other books that it's like, oh, you know, the Hunger Games, I'm just going to use that just because that's another like competition thing where you're going to die. And there it's like, oh, some people train because they're like, what if? And then other people are like, oh, no, it's fine. Like, it's whatever. Like, I'm never going to be called. Like, I'm never going to be called. Or like, I don't know. Like, even if I do, I got this. So it's like that kind of thing where, you know, if everyone is training, you're like, something serious is happening, and you got to be prepared.
Yeah,
I was like, I would definitely die. Like, straight up that. Like, no, I die.
Yeah, one of the things I enjoyed was seeing like the way society was built around, like the way that society had changed because of this. Yeah, they like made these schools for it and all that. Yeah.
But all the parents were killing their children once they got to like 11 years old, so they wouldn't have to get called. Oh, that was it's like so good. Oh god. It's like the saddest thing.
I loved too that we could be in the heads of every character. Like, there were like 6 characters or something that we went into the heads of when they got called. And I loved how you could see every single one of their thoughts. Like, Antoinette was like, I didn't really think it would happen. Antoinette was the first one to get called. And then, like, Megan got in there and was like, at first really upset, and then really like, let's do this. And also, can we appreciate for a second, there was a character named Megan and a character named Emma in this book. But the Megan character,
the odds were against us, okay?
Yeah, no, the Megan
got hers in the end.
She was awesome.
So was Emma. I was really sad when she died.
I know, it was sad. Actually, I love that Megan's character. I love that she, like, everyone's like, Megan, you're such a loudmouth. Like, you're like, this isn't good. And then she ends up, like, just baiting the fairies in. And I think it was such a cool scene, because it really showed, like, humanity willing to step up for themselves. And she was like, I'm just going to keep telling you about all these things that you're missing. And they're like, no, don't say that. And she's like, it's green over there. And there's, like, beautiful things. And then they just, like, wipe her mouth off of her face, which is just, like, what? And she gets like sent back to the human world. She like doesn't have a face, and that is the most terrifying thing I could think of. Go Megan.
And the fact that she like used her mouth to buy herself enough time to like write a warning to the people back home is just so cool to me.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, some great characters.
Also,
I love the main character.
I love the blurb on the back of the hardcover, at least, from Danielle Vega, that says, a must-read for anyone who's been sleeping too well at night. Perfect blurb.
That's good.
Yeah, what did you guys think about the main character, Nessa?
I liked her a lot. I love the fact that she's crippled, but she's like, I'm not going to let that hinder me. Like, I'm still gonna train. Everyone's like, don't bother, like, you're just gonna die anyway. And she's like, no, I'm gonna survive. And I thought that shit was great.
I liked that she was also like quite clever. Like she used a lot of her resources, which was a lot of it was her brain, to get by in the situations in school. And then also when she had her call, I would have liked, because in the end, wasn't she kind of saved a little bit by Connor's like bargain or whatever? Like what happened?
Yeah. So to recap the end, because I read it so recently.
The rest of us did not. So.
I can't remember what this is.
The fairies are attacking, or the Shida are attacking, and they have set the school on fire.
Right.
They set all of the dorm areas on fire. And in the middle of the fire, while Anto's trying to rescue her, Nessa gets called. And so she gets there, and she's like, it's over. Even if I get out of here, I'm going to die in the fire, because like it's going to consume the whole place. I'm not going to be.
And she'll be back in 4 minutes anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. She was like, in 4 minutes, the place will be all the way up in smoke, and there's no way I'll get out.
Right. Yeah.
And so she is kind of like making her way through the like fairyland. I don't totally remember what her goal is at first, but she decides she's not going to stay laying down because like instinct kicks in. She's like, I'm not just gonna wait here for them to kill me. And so she's making her way through the fairylands, ends up
she ends up in that whole tunnel.
She gets away from the hunters enough, but knows they're coming, knows if they touch her, they're gonna take her and like torture her, and she doesn't want to be tortured. She sees these like pits with these like acid monsters in the bottom, and she like sees it because a fairy who's chasing her falls into one, and she's like, I'm just going to jump into this and hang out as long as I can, and I'm dead anyway. And so she hangs out down there, awaiting death, basically. Meanwhile, the fairies have made a deal with Connor, not telling him that they need him to release them from the treaty so that they can like finish their destruction and stuff. And he says, not until you bring me her. You said I could kill her, so I'm not doing anything for you till you bring me her. So in the end, the fairies come to get Nessa, and she won't get out. But then at the last minute, she's like talking so much that I'm losing my train of thought.
Because don't they bring her back or something?
She makes a deal with them.
Okay.
She says, I'll go back with you if you make me fireproof.
Oh, right.
Right.
So they make her fireproof and take her back to Connor. She's like, yo, Connor, give me a kiss. And the fairies are like, don't do it. Do our thing first. And he's like, whatever, I'm going to give her a kiss. And she takes him and throws her back into the fire.
All right. Never mind. I changed my mind. I love that.
I remember that.
Because I was like, doesn't she only survive it because of his bargain? Then I was like, no, never mind. Because she makes her own bargain, the fireproof thing. And then, so she's still, no, I like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
But I was actually reading a review right before we went live because I was trying to remember things about the book, and the review I was reading was actually someone who's in a wheelchair, and so they were talking about like how much they loved the book and loved the representation.
Oh,
so that's good because I was wondering, would people with like disabilities consider this good representation?
That's what I was wondering too.
I did wonder that as well.
Yeah, and they were talking about how they loved that even though people doubted her and thought that she couldn't like survive and stuff, that like she was determined and that she like used like the like abilities she had, like that she like compensated with like how smart and resourceful she was and all of that.
Because I saw like because I loved the book. I loved Nessa. I loved that she wasn't just like straight white able-bodied person, but like I don't have a disability, like a physical disability. So I was like, I saw somebody else on Twitter being like, oh, I'm not sure about the disability rep. So I was like, oh, I wonder then if there are certain parts of it that are offensive, but like everyone's going to interpret it. This person liked it. Everyone's going to interpret it differently. I just like that. I like that Peadar put that in there, and that she yeah, she wasn't just this straight white Katniss that just kicks everyone's butts. Like she was, yeah, unique, and I liked that.
I remembered something else about the end. She's like laying there and the fairies find her and they're like, oh, her legs are broken. We can fix you. And they're like talking about all the ways they can torture her. And she ends up, because I find that such an interesting part of her character arc, that like at that point, she's like, I can't do it. I thought I was going to live and I'm not. And I thought that was like such a perfect character arc that while up to that point, I hadn't necessarily really felt for her. At that point, I super felt for her and like super sympathized with that feeling of like, this is it. Like, I'm done. But then she like at the last second decides to fight and like throws herself off the mountain to like get away and stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. I just want one thing about the ending with Connor's deal and stuff. This is the reason why I docked at Marks, was because of the ending, because I did love Nessa and her whole thing. I thought it was so cool. But the whole betrayal was with that one girl who like didn't have a heart, or she had like a hole through her chest.
Oh yeah.
That the fairies did, and she came out of nowhere. And like we never saw her being introduced, and suddenly she's there and has like struck this bargain. It's all her fault. So I really feel like
we've seen her once. Like they were like, she's over there at the table. She was a survivor, and they like they make mention of the rumors about what they did to her, but never say what actually happened.
Okay. I just
But
remember
it
reading
did
it.
still feel kind of like, wait.
Yeah, I just remember reading it, being like, "Who is this again? Like, why do I care about them?" Like, it was very abrupt for me, so I was like, "That's kind of strange." Like, we didn't really see her being like fully like introduced; just she was kind of suddenly there. So that was one thing I had. I was a little bit like, I don't know.
I kind of get why she wasn't more involved earlier, because there is very like, she's not a student; she's a survivor. So like, yeah, it's like I get it, but it would have been cool if maybe she'd been a student at the beginning and then I don't know.
Yeah,
but
there's a few like
had really
a bigger role. At the beginning, at least.
I had a hard time keeping track of all the teachers as it was.
There's a lot of characters.
Yeah.
There's a few
It's all
parallels.
it's not just
There's a few parallels to Hunger Games that I keep seeing come up, and like one of them is definitely the survivors thing. They're like the people that have been in it. They're like almost like borderline legends.
Yeah.
And they're like still staying at the school, and yeah, like that was one of the things.
Yeah.
I love that it's like Hunger Games, except there's no guarantee that a single one of them will live. Yeah, and like every single
I
one.
never knew that Nessa was gonna survive.
Yeah.
Like up to the end, I was like, she could die. I would not put it at her.
It's like the combination of the fact that like every single teen has to go through it, unlike the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that any of them will make it.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny because Kirkus gave it a review that was like, I think it was mostly good, but one of the things they said was that he didn't think the plot was like startlingly original, and I was like, really? Like,
really?
That was one of the first things I thought was how original this was, and I read a lot of YA.
Super overall like vague theme. It's like teenagers fighting to the death in the competition, which could be like 12 dystopian novels, but then also fairies and horror. Like,
makes this really original, less than the plot. But even the plot, I feel like was.
I mean, the character.
I thought the plot with the 3-minute thing, the getting called over, like the getting sent back all messed up, like that is, I haven't read that before. Like,
yeah, no, I've never read anything like this before.
Yeah, no.
Well, actually, that was another thing where I guess now he has a sequel, which is exciting. Also, the new cover is freaking gorgeous.
Beautiful.
I still have
the cover for the sequel too. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
There's Anto on it.
Ooh!
Okay,
the thing about that was like I remember reading it and being like, "What do you mean that's it?" Like, you had this entire world and such cool mythology, and it was such a short book, and I was like, "What the heck was this?" Like, I wanted it. This could have easily been a trilogy. This could have easily been a duology. Like, or it could have easily been a bigger book. This is like super thin. I was like, "What is this? I want more." But then I thought that it ended, and I thought like it did a good job of like ending it. So now I'm like, "What's gonna happen now in the sequel?"
Yeah, see, I kind of enjoyed that it was shorter, and I could have been happy with it. Like, I'm excited for a sequel, but I could have been happy with it just being one book. Like, I kind of liked that it was like focused instead of being about like the whole world. It was just about like this one school and this small group of characters.
Oh, okay, fair.
I liked that a lot. That it didn't, and maybe the sequel will go more into like all of Ireland kind of thing. But
Oh, I
And
hope
kind of
so.
like very focused lens of it. And
I
like
hope
the
it-
short, like I feel like if it had been longer, it might have been too intense to be longer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Such an intense book that I feel like I couldn't, like as much as I loved it and as fast as I read it, I did have to put it down a lot because I was like, this is so intense. So
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know if I could have made it a
Fair,
longer
fair.
book.
Yeah.
I think he could have done like, you know how Angel Fall is like that, but it's in small volumes, but there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it could have been like
Sorry,
that.
so the sequel.
Link,
Oh my
link,
gosh, the
link.
cover for the sequel is so
I'm
beautiful.
looking at it right now.
Oh, I love that.
It's so
But, oh no, I bought
that
the
is
old
gorgeous.
cover and it matches the new cover for book 1. And now I'm going to have uneven covers.
Luckily, I
Right.
haven't bought it at all.
What am I going to do
I
now?
didn't buy it at all, but I got an advance copy, so.
I'm going to have
It
to
has
buy
been
the
checked
new
out.
cover.
Twice from my library, and both times have been me now.
Hey! Nonetheless.
What? More people need to read this book, seriously.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, I recommended it to a couple of my friends at the bookstore that like horror books, and now one of them made it her staff pick, so it's selling a little
Nice.
bit better. But I'm sure near Halloween, especially, it's in October, it's just going to go crazy.
It's also so
hope so.
hard to like describe it and explain why people should read it. I think sometimes, like, because every year we do this like big book talk event at work where we talk about some of our favorite books. Like we do it in February, and we talk about our favorite books from the previous year. This is one of the ones I talked about, and I like was like trying to like describe it and like the things that make it great, and everyone was like, "This sounds really weird," and I was like, "No, you really should read this."
Well, it is weird.
It's so hard to describe.
I mean, if you only like straight-laced contemporary things where they fall in love and get married, you're not gonna like it, probably.
I'm like,
Yeah.
if you thought the Hunger Games should be more gruesome and bloody and terrifying,
If you wish more children died in the Hunger Games.
This is the book for you, my friends.
That's so good.
This is like murder fairies, just
Murder fairies, yeah.
murder fairies.
Not even like torture fairies, not even just murder fairies.
Yeah, true, torture fairies.
Very nice
If
stuff.
you don't want to see the murder and just want to see all the torturing that comes before the murder,
Oh dear.
read the call.
This is the book for you.
I'm
Just a
reading
good
the description
book.
of the sequel.
I use the actual call part of the book to describe it. Like if people ask me what it's about, like people get pulled over and they're there for 4 minutes, they come back in whatever condition they come back in. And like to me that's enough. Like no one would have to say anything other than that and I'd be like, sold.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, like the very first call, with that boy on the bus, he gets
Yes.
put back, and he has like horns, and I think goat hooves or something like that. I remember he at least has horns. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, well, like that's kind of cool. Like I go to Fairyland and get some horns. Like that sounds dope.
Doesn't
Very
he come
much
back
so my
dead,
aesthetic.
though?
Like I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
And then
Pretty sure he comes back dead.
he does.
I thought he just came back like unconscious or something.
No, he's like
Oh,
in
He's
half or
super
something.
dead.
He's
Oh,
cut in half or something with
Oh,
horns.
what?
So
What? Oh, I swear
that
he was
part is
still
kind of
alive.
a downer with
Okay,
the
exactly.
It's not like he is dead. He just
Okay.
described it in a way where it was like, he probably didn't survive.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Never mind then. But I was like, if I just get to go to Fairyland, like get some horns or some, I was like, okay, that's not horrible. And then it goes into like this person came back and is now mutated into this creepy like gorilla monster, and you're like, oh, okay.
You just have one giant arm now. Oh,
Poor Anto.
sucks.
But now you can like lift Nessa up to do whatever she needs.
I like just read the description of the sequel, and it was not what I was expecting.
Yeah,
I'm really
it
excited
was
now.
very much not what I was expecting either.
Oh,
Please
now I
tell
have
me.
to read it.
I have to go. What is it?
The invasion.
the-
is what it's called.
Yes, but what's the description?
Oh
Wait.
well.
Wait, I'm like, I go to my history. Okay, hold on. Search history. Donna.
Sounds really good.
Oh, the terrible attack on
Basically,
schools.
Nessa gets sent back.
Ah.
Oh my god, it is the Hunger Games too.
Oh my god, it is! Ah, no!
Terrible
I'm
attack on the
kind of
school is
happy about
created
that.
by the 10 perpetrators.
Because I remember being happy
Oh.
about Catching Fire when this is terrible, but I was happy they were going back.
Yeah.
Part of what you loved about Hunger Games was like the idea of the Hunger Games, and that's part of like I think why some people don't like Mockingjays because it's so different. Although it's like, well, the series had to include some way. Like it couldn't just be a third
Yeah.
Hunger Games that they could do.
Boy, I hope that Nessa gets, like, if I were Nessa, I'd be really angry and I would, like, get all badass in the fairyland and come back and screw stuff up.
Well, now I'm
You
wondering.
send me
if
back, I'm coming back to kill all of you.
Exactly.
Now I am gonna be a traitor.
Yeah, there you go.
You did this.
Oh boy. Well, like, that was the thing that I liked, and also, like, I hate him so much. I hate Connor. He's awful. But that's what I really liked about his call, how he basically challenged the Fairy King and was like, nah, man. And then he, like, stole one of those Fae person horses and he, like, got some clothes or something, like, and a sword. Like, he was just like, nah, like, I'm gonna, like...
It was like, I hate you so much and I want you to die there, but you are being so heroic right now.
Right?
I'm having a hard time not...
Like,
yeah, get that horse, you evil person.
But then he comes back with a bunch of different limbs, and you're like, oh, okay.
Well, because you also hate the Shida.
Yeah,
is that how you say it?
Shiva.
Shiva. Like, you also hate them, too. So you're kind of like, I hate Connor, but I might hate the fairies more.
Yeah, well, like, that's the thing about fairies, and that's the thing about fairies that I like, is that they're not human. Like, they can look human and they can act human, but they're not human. And I think those little differences in the way that they view what's right and wrong, and their own morals and their own standards and codes of, like, loyalty and, like, good and bad. I love that kind of thing. And this took it to the extreme, mind you. But I like how even at the beginning they're just like, oh, this is so fun. Like, let's give this person new limbs. Like, and it's not even like a... like, oh, we hate all humans, like, we're gonna just, like, you know, cut everyone's head off. It's just like, oh, like, like, this one's legs are broken, like, let's make it better, kind of thing, even though they don't know what better is, and they're just gonna...
And they were like, they suggested to make her better, they, like, braid her limbs so she's a circle. So
I don't quite understand how
that will help.
No, like,
you guys do not have the whole human anatomy sorted out.
So that's what I really liked about it.
Yeah. And how the fairy king guy, his armor was all people's mouths. Remember that? So creepy.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yes.
Well, now in the second one, we're going to see him again, because I think we just kind of saw him briefly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And part of me wants to know, like, what the Seetha were like before they got banished to like Fairyland or whatever.
Well, they obviously weren't fantastic people because they got banished.
They obviously were fantastic, but I'm wondering if they were that twisted before, or if, like, that environment, like, twisted them further, because it's such a, like, awful place. Like,
well, that was the thing with that. I think that was because that was how Megan died, because they were banished to this place that was very unlike fairies that they need. Like, fairies are supposed to be like nature spirits, and they want trees and they want oceans and sky, and now they're trapped in this gross gray land where nothing grows. And
which is why they're doing what they do. Is because they're angry. It's revenge. Yeah.
So when Megan goes over and she's like, I can see the trees, and, like, I was swimming the other day and, like, there's blue sky everywhere, and they're like, no, stop talking. So, like, it's like, you torture them with views of their own world. So now it's gonna happen.
See, like, I love this type of horror. Like, I love horror stories, like I said before, but, like, my brand of horror that I write is definitely not this horrifying. Like,
you have, like, eerie stuff.
Yeah, you're more like atmospheric horror.
Yeah, there we go.
Like, I don't know if I could do this whole, like, human limbs used as things other than limbs. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I'm down for that.
See, I was, like, taking notes. I was like, interesting. This horrifies me. How can I use this later?
I could have a dress made of lips. This sounds amazing.
After reading The Call and A Crown of Wishes by Roshni Chokshi, I'm realizing that mouths are so much creepier than you give them credit for.
And eyeballs.
Especially when they're not what they're supposed to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so kidding. Blech. Okay.
I did wish that there was maybe, like, a couple more twists, like things I didn't see coming. Because the biggest twist was that the teacher they called Frankenstein was one of the fairies. But I felt like that was really obvious. Like, I guessed it the first time we saw him.
Yeah, I forgot about that too.
So,
yeah, it definitely wasn't a very surprising book.
Yeah.
I would love to have, like, all the creep and maybe, like, one more surprise.
Yeah.
There was that thing that I thought was so clever, because in Irish folklore, the fairies are the fair folk. They're also called the wee folk, like the little folk. And that whole idea that, like, their whole world was in, like, a raindrop kind of thing, and how they get smaller because they're, like, compressing down to the size of their world, and that's why they're small. I thought that was such a cool idea. I love the way that you, like, put that little extra bit in. Or, like, when they find the girl that was supposed to be coming out of the Fae Mound, and she had, like, really small legs, And they're like, this is super weird. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're like, oh, that's so strange. Like, why is she, you know, like normal size? Then she's like really tiny legs. Like, what's that about? It's because she wasn't quite out of it yet, so she was still like bound to the dimensions of the fairy world. It was super neat.
I keep getting super distracted by Megan's Poe cup. That's so amazing.
Pull me a cup.
Oh, God.
Oh, that's amazing. I
figured I needed to drink some Irish breakfast tea for the
in a
book in Ireland.
Yeah.
In a Poe cup.
Yeah.
There's another Poe
you
cup
can't get more perfect
Come
than
at me,
that.
Poe.
Come at me, Poe.
Yeah.
I love
And
it.
it's like him like with his arms crossed and like oh, what is that from? I can't quite remember what website it's from.
So good.
Pretty
I
great.
will always love Edgar Allan Poe puns.
This has so much potential for going super off track.
Yep.
I was going to say something else. Oh, yeah, actually, that was another part I really loved that you guys just reminded me about with them finding the fairy, because it was a fairy, right, that they found half out of the mounds, because that was so creepy, because they're like roping it off and be like, we have to study her, and like, yeah, I thought that was a really good, I kind of thought that was a little bit of a twist, actually. Like, that was a little bit surprising to me, and I liked when they found that, and like, because there was like a weird, creepy feeling around the mound, right, when they went there, and like I really liked
the people that went closer like got called, so they're like, you can't go near the fairy mound, and then people like daring each other to go there. And you're like, no, it's a terrible idea, why would you do that? You're idiots.
And called anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, fair. Okay, true. Oh my god, I thought you were making a pun. You're like, hey, that was a bad call on their part, and I was like, oh god. Well, you didn't make the pun, so I had to make the pun.
I'm interested to see if in book 2 we get more of like the bigger picture stuff. Like, I feel like we got a couple of scenes where we saw the headmistress lady talking to other people, saying like the government wanted to try sending kids to the mound to see if they could force the call to happen, but she wasn't going to let them do it. And saying that they wanted to do like crueler things to try and like get people there to manipulate the fairies and stuff. And so I'm really interested to see how that plays into everything in book 2.
Yeah, I find that so interesting when you've got something like the Hunger Games or the Call, where there continues to be a functioning society and like a government and stuff, but you're seeing how this government is dealing with something like the Call, where they're like experimenting on this fairy or seeing if they can send kids to the mound, or like, I don't know, and they have a whole school system worked out for this, and that's the stuff that really fascinates me, is like expanding on what would happen if this was a thing in the real world.
And also the fact that like Ireland is completely cut off from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, like what's the rest of the world doing? I'm sure the rest of the world also has, you know, fake creatures. So what's going on there? Like what's going on in China, or like maybe something in South America? Like what's going on there?
It's possible they don't have any sort of fairy creatures.
I don't think they
specifically
do,
like Irish mythology fairies. So.
And it talks about how the Irish forced them underground. So like that's something that the Irish maybe just did to this one mythological creature. Maybe no one else is having this problem or wants anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
like I'm interested in like, is the rest of the world like our world? Are they like wondering what's happening in Ireland?
They just think there's an economic downturn or something.
Well, there was a thing with the Hunger Games where there was a joke about how, you know, like America's having this big Hunger Games, and like everywhere else in the world is like, what's going on with America, man? We haven't heard from them in like 200 years, and the rest of the countries are like, yeah, they're probably fine. Which is true, because like in the Hunger Games universe, like what's happening in Germany? Like no one knows.
Right, that's true too. It's probably the type of thing where they're like, oh, this country does these barbaric things, but like nobody bother with them. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Well, it's also supposed to be kind of post-apocalyptic. Like, there's been all these like floods that have like rising sea levels and all of that. So who knows what state the rest of the world is in too? Like they could be just as bad, but we never know.
And like, it's sad, but that is kind of how things work in the actual world. When something is really, really, really bad, we don't talk about it, and you don't really know all the details until much later.
Especially if the government's fully controlling what information.
Well, it's like people can't sit there and say that it wouldn't happen. Like, oh, if this crazy crap was going down in Ireland, America would go in and kill. No, that wouldn't happen. America's there and be like, well, it's not really any of our business. Like, take Germany. Like, nobody even thought to stop Hitler until he was like, let's go take over the rest of the world. And then they were like, okay, maybe we should do something about this. But if it's just happening in Germany, it's just their problem, right? So it's not necessarily true that the rest of the world would be sitting up and taking notice. They'd just be like, not our problem. It's not our country.
With Hunger Games as an example, like they don't have the internet or anything. Like, they don't really have a way of knowing.
Right.
I just love the idea of the rest of the world being like, we haven't heard from Ireland in like a really long time. Like, where did I put that? And we're like,
those guys.
Okay. Like,
that could be like a thing like North Korea where it's just like, they don't have everything's controlled.
Or there's also
there's calling people are getting called in North Korea. Like
we wouldn't know, would we?
It could be that like the rest of the world has forgotten Ireland exists. Like if there's like an enchantment over Ireland, it could be that people have just forgotten about it.
That would be interesting in itself.
Something in the beginning of the book? I feel like there was. Tell me if I'm wrong, Megan, because you read this like real fast.
Okay.
Wasn't there something about how like it was like the ferries like cut off Ireland, so there was like a mist or something around it, and like every plane that tried to get there couldn't land.
Yeah, they can't get out anymore.
Yeah, they can't get out.
So they can't get in or out.
They can't get in.
No one
like
can
boats
come
can't
in
get
either.
there, like planes can't get there.
Oh, well, that
so the
explains
world
it.
knows about it, or at least
The
they
world
know
does
that
know
they can't
about
go
it.
to Ireland.
The world
They at
knows
least know you can't go to Ireland anymore.
No tourism. Tourism has plummeted.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. Okay, so that is a thing then that the book does explain a little bit. I find that interesting. So now for the hard-hitting question: if you guys got called, would you survive?
Nope.
No.
Okay, maybe the better question is
we don't know anything. Survival
maybe the better question is how long would you survive?
Oh, I have red hair, so I stand out like a lot. So probably not that far. No, not that long.
I'm gonna guess. Oh, you go ahead.
I said I think I would just hide, but I think I'd probably be. I would
That's
probably
what
hide.
Antoinette did, and she got eaten by human spiders.
That's what I said. I think I would hide, and then I would end up getting eaten by something that wasn't.
Yeah.
The fairies wouldn't get to me, but I would just be eaten by something else, which isn't as bad as being tortured by fairies, sadistic fairies. So I'd rather be eaten by a human spider than tortured by a
Are you
sadistic
sure?
fairies.
Are you
I
sure?
think. If I have to think about this one.
Yeah, well, if we're gonna get like super morbid, that was the thing about the call where you would just show up naked with nothing on you. So it's not like you can bring a sword with you or you can't bring a gun with you. So it's like that, significantly decreases my probability of surviving.
Yeah.
Although I guess in this situation we would have been trained at one of these schools, so maybe we would have a slightly better chance.
Yeah,
That's
true.
Fair
Like,
point.
I feel like right now.
All the time, so
Yeah,
I'm surprised none of them. Sorry.
What's
go
that?
ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, if I got called right now, like, my cardio is terrible, so, like, I'm not gonna last very long.
See, I'm in decent shape, but I don't think my head would keep up with it enough. I would just start panicking and be like, well, this is it. I try to
I'm just doing something stupid and like
be stuck 3 feet
kill
off.
myself.
Yeah.
I'd like run off a cliff accidentally or something. Not paying attention, like wouldn't even be the fairies that would get me. It'd be my own like stupidity.
Be like, well, they wouldn't have as much fun then. Which I'd be like, screw you guys. I'm gonna run off a cliff so you don't get any fun.
Exactly.
Ruin your day.
I'm curious why none of them worked on like sharpening their nails to use as weapons while they were there.
Effective. Human nails aren't
Do you know how easy
like,
it is for nails to break off?
Yeah.
I feel like if you had like 100 years to find ways to toughen them up naturally, though.
Fair.
Like toughening our nails isn't really a priority right now.
I don't know though. I feel like because anything physical except for you that you bring over disappears. So you can really do.
So do you not have fingernails?
Yeah, your fingernails
No,
are
but
still
your
here.
fingernails aren't going to be. What are you going to do to them? That's going to make them.
Sharpen them to points.
There's
Gouge out people's eyes.
There's such wimpy things though. Like feel your nails. They're useless.
Mine are pretty strong. I feel
And
like I
they
could
really
do
hurt if they went into your
serious
eyes.
damage.
No, what you should do is sharpen your teeth into points.
That's what I said.
Yes.
Oh!
Yes, it's far more
Yeah.
effective.
pull a District
I'm
2
not
and
getting
just
my
start
mouth
from those
back
down.
fairy without them touching me
This is
first.
true.
True.
If one-
Also, yeah, you have to be really close range, and then also if you even finish your call, then you're stuck with those teeth the rest of your life. So
I don't think so.
Well, there are
You'd be
lots of
worried about.
cultures that do it.
that's
Like,
true. That is
thing.
true.
I would do it. I'd be
I
like,
did find the section about their like isolation or whatever, and it says no human can leave or enter, no medicines or vaccines or spare parts for the factories that once made them, nor messages of hope or friendship, nothing. A veil of mist hangs off the coast, and all those within, whatever their passports used to say, now belong to the same endangered species.
interesting. So
So it doesn't
creepy.
really clarify whether or not the rest of the world knows anything or like remembers they exist or anything, but there's definitely like
I
a
mean,
mist around
They
it.
probably don't know.
Yeah.
They
I
know
kind of like the
something's
idea of there being like this mist, and like every time like boats try to get into it, like they veer away and they just don't know there's anything there or something. I
It's
think
like the
that would be really-
Bermuda Triangle, but in Ireland.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I still think I would sharpen my teeth at points and just bite off the fairy's hand if they tried to touch me. Yeah, I'll bite you.
But as soon as they touch you, like you're screwed. So you have to be
I'll
real
take-
close range for that.
Take off a few fingers at least.
There you go. Why WordNerds? Wholesome family fun.
Now we rebranded. We read adult books
We're
now.
WordNerds now.
Now PG-13.
Does that mean I can swear?
Maybe.
I'm still gonna try to do
Time will
it.
tell.
I rate
Exactly.
grade, so I gotta at least censor myself a little bit. For the most part.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. Any more? That was the only question I had, is if you would survive the call.
I was really interested in the people who like betrayed the humans.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to decide like how Slytherin are you? Like if you think all these people are gonna die, would you do it anyway to like live? It got real dark.
I would
I
wanna,
never figured out an answer to the question.
I would want to betray the fairies, or I would want to be like, I'm totally a traitor, and then somehow betray
pull
the
a snake.
fairies.
Cross.
Yeah, double cross the fairies as well,
Just do a triple
even
cross.
if it ended up killing me.
So in this book, it's been going for like 100 years, right?
I don't think that long because it's
Not that long, because
old
it talks about
people.
past.
There
Yeah,
are
I was trying to figure it out, and I was
something.
like, Nessa's parents aren't.
I think it's like
They
30
weren't
years or
ever
something
called,
like that.
Yeah, it's like
30 or
all
40.
the big adults are generally fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But all the youths.
The
That's what I
youths.
thought. Yeah.
Oh, the
I couldn't
youths.
remember.
Yeah,
I couldn't
yeah,
remember how long
there's like
ago.
no one under the age of like 30 or something like that.
Right.
It's
Okay,
just
so
older
because Nessa's
people.
parents weren't called, right?
Right.
Yeah, they're part of the generation that didn't.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because when it talks about passports, I'm like, passports aren't around, like, I don't think for hundreds of years ago or anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
obviously-
they wouldn't remember what passport. Like Nessa wouldn't remember what they were or know anything about them. If they
And
didn't
she
know.
references
Yeah.
like some pop culture stuff
Mhm.
as well, like songs and stuff.
Oh, was there? I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't remember specifically which one,
Hmm.
but it was there.
Because yeah, I guess they would still have all their technology that they had
Mhm.
when it ended or when it happened. Oh yeah, she talks about Monty Python.
Yeah.
That's what
Oh,
I did.
really? Oh,
I just flipped to a page and saw that. Yeah.
Oh, I don't even
Oh.
remember that. That's awesome.
yeah, so definitely it's kind of surreal in the book having them be going through that, but then also have like popular culture that we have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But what that makes it so believable.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it makes it so much creepy.
Yeah, right.
Mhm, definitely.
So it's like, ew, fairies, like wings and glitter and stuff, and these are like fairies. It's gonna like give you someone
Gonna
else's
rip your
limb.
face off.
Exactly.
Yes.
I found it really interesting too. Hopefully we learn more about it in book 2, but they were talking about how you don't technically have to be an adolescent to be called.
Oh, right.
That it's just easiest to find you when you're an adolescent. That babies have been called, but they haven't released that information because people would panic.
Oh, really?
And then
I didn't remember that.
some adults,
Right.
like old people, but that the window for the call is different. Like if you're going to take an old person, it has to be within or a sick person, it has to be within a few hours of their impending death, and
Oh.
that they've like kept all the babies secret and stuff because there would be widespread panic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah, I don't even remember that, but okay. That would be even more terrifying. That would just be like, everyone is screwed.
Yeah. Well, that would suck too if you're like, I'm on my deathbed with cancer or whatever, and then you get called and you're like, well.
Yeah, this sucks.
This is great. What a year I am having.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of the, like, if a babies are getting called, because then they have the things about changelings, about how fairies will come and leave one of their own sickly fairy babies in the cradle and take the healthy human child back to fairyland to, like, help strengthen fairy blood. So I guess it's like an ode to that, if anything, or maybe I'm just making strange connections because I love Irish mythology.
I think they did reference that at a different part of the book. They like referenced that mythology.
Did
Changing.
Can't remember.
So much stuff. Yeah, I was gonna say.
I know.
Much
I read
don't
this so long ago.
Me too.
It's such a short book that packs in so much.
Yeah, that's I really commend him for it.
Well, that's why I really was excited to go like and find my book and reread it, and then I was so mad that it's like somewhere underneath my crawl space, and I'm like, I'm 5 months pregnant. I'm not going to go crawling around in my crawl space, opening boxes and trying to find this book. But I'm like kind of sad. I might actually buy the new one with the new cover because it will match the sequel anyways, and then I can reread it. So I probably will.
Do it.
It's gonna happen at some point.
I think I'll wait for the new cover to come out in soft cover, and then I'll buy it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm weak. Like I'm trying to do that with V.E. Schwab's series, the Shades of London series. I'm trying to wait for the third one to come out in paperback, so I have all paperbacks.
Oh, it's gonna take forever.
I know. I don't think it's gonna happen. Next time I go into a bookstore, I'm just gonna cave, I think. I can't wait, because then I'll forget what happened in the first 2 books.
The third book's really epic.
I really want it. So yeah, I'm not gonna be able to wait. But my bookshop's gonna look uneven.
The sequel doesn't come out until March, so
next
Well, it'll be coming out in hardcover anyways, so it'll look uneven anyways. Ugh, bookstores. Why do you do this to me?
Hearing you talking yourself into just fine.
It's not hard.
I'm just gonna have to buy it. Like, oh god, my life is so hard.
I'm just gonna have to buy it. Yeah, that happens all the time. I talk myself into buying books all the time.
Oh, all the time.
Hey, it comes out in March. It's perfect timing. That'd be a great book to read to Matilda. Bedtime book.
Good, nice little bedtime story.
Poor child. I'm like, let me read you this YA horror novel. It's being maimed and ripped to pieces.
Also, Matilda was not actually the official name of Aaron's child.
No, that's what we call it. I guess we should explain this.
No,
because I really like the name Matilda from the Roald Dahl books, and I wanted to, if it's a girl, I wanted to name it Matilda. And then I don't have a boy's name, so the WordNerds, of course, very lovely of them to have come up with this alternate name, Matilda, which is terrible, and you guys are not allowed talking to my child ever. Because I know you will call him the name.
We will monogram Matilda on everything, or embroidery on everything.
Years later, I'm going to have to try to explain to this poor child what the heck this means.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. My name is Jim. Like, I don't get it.
What is this? These crazy people I used to talk with on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, used to talk with?
Wow. Once they monogrammed all this crap for you, I stopped talking to them.
I see Erin's already making plans to cut us out of her life.
Well.
Well, if you send me stuff on it that says Matilda. Oh dear. Yeah.
Back to creepy murder fairies.
That needed to be explained, so time out for that. Yes, creepy murder fairies.
It's so good.
It's so good, you guys.
And there's really like nothing to spoil. Like, so even if you watched this whole chat and haven't read it yet, you can still read it, and it will
Yeah.
be awesome.
We really haven't spoiled anything. Like, I mean, we talked about the ending a little bit, but there's so
You
much.
described the whole ending, but
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel spoilery.
No.
yeah, this book is way more about like the experience of reading it. So like, even if you know what's going to happen, it's not the kind of like, and like I was saying, like it's not a book about surprises or plot twists. So like, even if you know the ending, it's still an enjoyable experience.
It's about being horrified by
Yeah.
Peadar O'Guilin's mind.
Yeah. And hoping
Yeah,
you never
it's
meet him in
brilliant.
person.
Oh, but I've seen YouTube videos of him, and he's like so cool. He's just like this older Irish man.
That's awesome.
He seems like so nice, and I really do want to meet him. So if you're ever at a book thing in the U.S., Mr. O'Guilin, hit me up. I want to talk about horror books.
I'm planning on going to Ireland, so I'll just like show up at his house or something.
Start shouting. Just like go to the top of a mountain. Like, Peadar!
See who comes.
That's how it works, right? That's how you
Yeah,
summon.
he will probably come.
That you're
That's how you summon
calling him.
Here, if you-
Oh, but
Thank you. I'm here all week.
terrible. You should feel ashamed.
Me and my awful dad jokes.
Well, we've been going for just about an hour. Do we have any final thoughts other than we loved this? It was gory and horrible, and everyone should read it. That's about it. Okay. Do we have any idea what next week's chat is, or to be discussed?
It will be a chat.
It will be a chat.
It will be in the videos this week. You'll find out. Stay tuned.
It will be the same time. Tune in next Sunday, the same bat channel, same bat time, and we will be there. Okay. Thanks for everyone that came out and discussed this awesome book with us. We love you guys. Hope to see you there next Sunday, and we'll be there, like Rachel said, all week, providing you with amazing videos. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.